They painted the room utterly and completely with all these colorful stories from Norwegian tradition. It's really an amazing experience to step into the room for the first time. I can remember when I first set foot in this room and chills went down my spine. I'm Martha Griesheimer, and I'm the coordinator of volunteers at Vesterheim, and I inherited the responsibility for interpreting this room. So it's located in Vesterheim's Amdal-Odland Heritage Center, which houses the administrative offices for Vesterheim. It is the creation of two artisans who collaborated with each other for many years. Sigmund Aarseth, who was from Norway and well known as a rosemaler. He was the first rosemaling instructor that ever taught a class at Vesterheim. But he became much more than a rosemaler. He was a very fine artist in many ways and did a lot of painting of interiors, both in Norway and in America. And he collaborated with Sallie Haugen DeReus, who is an Iowan, who is also a fine rosemaler and decorative painter herself. So the two of them collaborated on many spaces, including this room. It was painted in 1999 and was inspired by a book that Sigmund Aarseth's wife had given him as a Christmas gift, actually. It was about the calendar stick, the medieval Primstav that's a part of Norwegian tradition. These were used at the time that Norway became a Christian country. The calendar stick, for the first time, marked each day and each week so that people could keep track of the calendar year, the church year, and do what they needed to do as proper Christians. Not only did they have the church year to keep track of, but they also had their agricultural routines and schedules. You had to know the right time to plant your fields, the right time to harvest, the right time to brew your beer for the Christmas season. You might want to remember when is the first time you could catch salmon in the local stream. There were so many things that people remembered, and then once they had this calendar, they attached those meanings to the calendar. So there are many, many layers of meaning represented in the calendar stick. When they became Lutheran, there was less of a concern with keeping track of the saints' days, but still there were so many meanings attached to it that they continued to use the calendar stick to keep track of the year. The murals represent traditions from many different parts of Norway, so each region of Norway would have its own traditions and its own particular Primstav. There wasn't any standard Primstav, except all of them would have midsummer, and all of them would have Christmas marked, and all of them would have the summer side and the winter side. So the murals go around the room through the entire cycle of the year. We have examples of Christian practices. So we've got people going to church, riding in a boat across the fjord or across the lake to get to church on Christmas Eve. After that, of course, it's spring. The planting, the preparation of the fields, the blessing of the fields is shown here on the murals. One of the murals shows the time when the salmon run for the first time in the spring, so we have fish painted on the wall, and that's associated with a certain saint's day. The time for weddings, there's images of weddings. The time for wedding is after the planting has happened, and when there's kind of a slow time in the season because it's a little bit of time off. It provides an opportunity for festivities and celebration. Christmas time is the darkest time of the year, and people felt traditionally that there were potential dark forces, or their ancestors might be, the spirits of the ancestors might be returning at Christmas time. So they did a lot of, had a lot of traditions to protect themselves against mischief of evil spirits. So there's a picture of the family lying on straw in their home on Christmas Eve, Why would they do that? Well, they're leaving their beds available for the ancestors who come back. They want to show respect to the ancestors and not to anger them, because they might cause trouble if you anger them. Before Christmas, the priest might come around and mark the food storage buildings, the stabur, with a cross, paint a cross in tar on the storage buildings, because people wanted to protect their food stores to get them through the winter. That was a matter of survival. Later on in the Christmas season, we have a picture in the corner there of people. They look like they're dressed in Halloween costumes, but in fact these are Yule Bockers. And so in the days after Christmas and around New Year's, there was a tradition of dressing in costumes, all kinds of wild and crazy costumes, and going as a group with a goat head on a stick, going from house to house to frighten away any of the evil spirits that might be lurking. They would carry a broom, they would make a lot of noise, and they would carry that goat head on a stick, and that represents the goat who might butt an evil spirit to get it out of the house. So that's the reason for the goat head at the beginning of the group. In one of the panels here, we've got the Christmas Nisse pictured, and he is enjoying a bowl of rummegrøt, or he's at least nearby the bowl of rummegrøt. That's his favorite food. And in Norway, he is very much associated with Christmas. But in the old days in Norway, the Nisse was near every farm. There were lots of Nisser. And he's kind of a trickster in Norwegian folklore, in that he is someone who you could blame if things went wrong on your farm, or if things were going well, it was probably because you really appreciated your Nisse and you took care of him and put a bowl of rummegrøt out in the barn at Christmas and kept him happy. And he would make sure that the horse's tail was combed very nicely and that the cow never ran out of milk and things like that. But if you did not take care of your Nisse and the crops failed, or your cow went dry, or the pig got out, then you could blame it on the Nisse. It's handy to have somebody else to blame your problems on. But the Nisse is not the only non-human being that's depicted on the wall. We have a huldra, and we have a creature that he grabs the base of a mill in the fall when the farmers are desperately trying to grind all their grain at the end of the fall. And sometimes that mill freezes up, and they imagined a creature down there grabbing a hold of the base of the mill and not allowing the mill to turn. Well, what do you do about that? You pour a little bit of beer down the mill to placate and satisfy that monster, and then he'll let go of the mill and you can continue to grind your grain. That story explains a real experience that people were having at that time of year, because their mill would freeze up, and that was a problem. So the huldra, that is another character from Norwegian folklore that appears on the wall here, and she is kind of in tradition, she's a beautiful being, can look like a beautiful woman, but she has a tail. Well, in this picture, she also has a long nose. She's not really very beautiful. But the huldra like to marry human men, and they also are known for stealing human babies. And here on the wall, we've got a picture of a huldra holding a very beautiful human baby, and the human is looking in the cradle at their home, and they have a baby with a long nose, so that's probably a huldra baby. There's been a switch. I really think that everybody should see this room, because it shows so many layers of history and tradition and stories that were part of the immigrants' world. They left a context where they had beliefs and understandings about the world and certain routines and ways of life that in some ways they brought them along when they moved to a different place. So it's open to the public anytime it's not in use for a meeting or something like that. So Visitors are encouraged to stop by the Amdal-Odland building and ask to see it, and they're welcome to stop in and take a look at the murals in person. It's really a spectacular space.